What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Thursday, January 25th, 2024, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now, it is 2:23 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, and here at home. I want to start with Europe, though. So, apparently, for the first time in 30 years, the German military, together with security authorities, emergency services, industry, and allies, is developing a civil defense plan for the entire country of Germany, according to the Deutsche Welle. Okay, so Germany is putting together civil defense plans. They have not had these since probably the late 1980s or early 1990s, okay, right before the fall of the USSR and the fall of the Berlin Wall. And by the way, guys, when I was a kid, I actually went to Berlin. This was in the early 90s, and I got to see the remnants of the Berlin Wall. I was there as a kid right after the wall came down. It was pretty surreal to see. And the Polish deputy prime minister said, "We need to prepare a new law on civil defense." He explained that it is about preparing shelters, appropriate crisis management, volunteers, and first aid skills. Wow, guys. So, Germany and Poland, two major European powers, are going to be creating civil defense plans. Okay, that is a huge red flag. And NATO is conducting its largest exercise since 1988. Right now, it just started this week on Monday, and it's going to last all the way through June with over 90,000 troops from over 30 countries. Some of them are not even part of NATO, like Moldova and Sweden. Moldova is going to be hosting NATO troops during this exercise, and this exercise is primarily going to be focusing on the eastern part of NATO along the Russian border from Norway all the way to Romania. And I personally believe that this is basically a cover for a forward deployment of NATO forces to the border of Russia. I think a lot of these NATO troops are going to stay there. And I also think this is because of some intelligence that NATO has that Russia might be planning some type of invasion of the Baltic countries or Poland or Moldova or Finland. So I personally believe, guys, that Russia will invade or attack NATO sometime this year. Okay, I think they're going to try to invade the Baltics. They might go after the Suwalki Gap to create a land corridor from Kaliningrad to Russia through Belarus. Okay, so get prepared. Things are about to spiral out of control. 2024 has been crazy so far, and we're only about 3.5 weeks in. Okay, and Lithuania and Poland are planning to hold exercises in the Suwalki Gap on the border of the two countries in April. And Putin arrived in Kaliningrad earlier this morning. I'll show you guys some flight paths of his doomsday planes. They followed him to Kaliningrad, and there were multiple NATO reconnaissance planes in the air when Putin was traveling to Kaliningrad, and we currently still have a NATO sub Hunter plane active off the coast of Kaliningrad. So it's a huge red flag for Putin to suddenly go to Kaliningrad now. Okay, with everything going on, why is he going to Kaliningrad all of a sudden? Okay, and NATO's doing this massive exercise. We had those leaked German military documents that said that Russia was planning to invade the Baltics at the end of the year. The Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, have agreed to build a massive defense line along their border with Russia and Belarus. Estonia said they're going to put in 600 bunkers along their 200-mile border with Russia, which basically amounts to one bunker every 500 meters or every quarter of a mile, which is just insane. I mean, we haven't seen fortifications like that probably since the Cold War, okay? I'm sorry, since World War II. Okay, that is pretty serious. So things are really escalating in Europe, and we currently have U.S. nuclear forces on high alert. What you're looking at here are two U.S. nuclear war command and control planes up in the air. And we also have a nuke sniffer up in the air over eastern Nebraska right now. It has the call sign Cobra 29. And then here we have the nuclear war command and control planes. Okay, one of them is over Arkansas right now, and one of them is off the coast of Texas. And you can see it's actually doing these loops here. And when these planes do these kinds of banking turns, that means that they're dropping their trailing wire antenna so they can communicate with our nuclear armed submarines. These planes are basically like a flying antenna for the Pentagon, and they can communicate with our submerged nuclear armed submarines through VLF, very low frequency. That's basically the only way to communicate with our submerged nuclear armed subs, because regular radio frequencies, including HF, high frequency, cannot penetrate hundreds of feet of ocean water. So they need to do it with VLF, very low frequency. Okay. So our nuclear forces are on high alert, and I have some sources around the country that keep me updated constantly of what's going on near some of our critical bases. I have a source near Raven Rock Mountain Complex in southern Pennsylvania, which is the alternate Pentagon. I have a source that lives near Patuxent River. I have a source that lives near Offutt Air Base. Okay, so I have sources all across the country constantly updating me when things are going down. And one of my sources near Patuxent River Naval Air Station told me that he has seen a lot of activity the past 2 days with fighter jets, doomsday planes, and other types of military planes flying non-stop, okay, over the Chesapeake Bay. And they were flying with their transponders off in many situations. This was the last 2 days. I also have a subscriber who sent me an email earlier today saying, I live in Colorado Springs. I live between Fort Carson and Pete Field. In the last 2 days, not to mention the last week, large amounts of equipment heading south from Fort Carson on rail cars. Also, every night, helicopters going back and forth from Fort Carson to Pete Field. Yesterday morning, two black KC-135 aerial refuelers flew in the same time. In the afternoon, AWACS came in. I noticed this movement only when I was outside during the time span of less than 2 hours. Who knows how much more was coming and going. Okay, so massive amounts of equipment being moved in the Colorado Springs area near Fort Carson. Fort Carson is a major base for various types of artillery and heavy weapons. A lot of the brigade combat teams that have been deployed to Europe, especially Poland, came from Fort Carson. They have a lot of tanks there, a lot of artillery. They have a huge training ground over there. So that's definitely a sign that the U.S. is gearing up for something big. And here we have a NATO sub-Hunter plane. This is operated by the U.S. Navy. It's a P-8 Poseidon, and you can see it is currently flying along the coast of Kaliningrad, which is where Putin is right now, okay? And I want to just show you guys what happened last night or early this morning. You can see these three Russian doomsday planes or airborne command post planes flying into Kaliningrad. And at the same time, there was a NATO aerial refueler off the coast of the Gotland Island in the Baltic Sea. And look at all these NATO reconnaissance planes that were in the air while Putin was going to Kaliningrad. We had this French reconnaissance plane flying along the border of Kaliningrad and Lithuania. We had a Swedish reconnaissance plane flying along the border with Poland and Kaliningrad. Then we had that aerial refueler off the coast of the Gotland Island in the middle of the Baltic. And here's a closer look. And then we also had an RC-135 rivet joint that flew all the way up into Finland, okay, and back down, and it flew along the border of the Baltic countries with Russia. So get prepared, guys. Things are really spiraling out of control. And this update was sponsored by Patriot Supply. Guys, Patriot Supply has brought back their 25% discount on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you have to go to preparewithNYPrepper.com, and the link is in the description below this video. And this 3-month emergency food supply has a 25-year shelf life and includes over 2,000 calories per day. All of this food is stored within 6 rugged, water-resistant buckets, and free shipping is included. And Patriot Supply is also doing a 30% discount on the Vesta self-powered indoor space heater and stove. With this thing, you can safely heat and cook indoors. You don't have to worry about carbon monoxide poisoning. You don't have to worry about burning your house down. It uses special canned heat, and it comes with 24 cans. Each can will last you 6 hours and can warm up a room of 200 square feet. So to get the deal, also go to preparewithNYPrepper.com. And also, Patriot Supply has a general store where they sell all kinds of prepping and survival items. To get to that store, you just click on the Patriot Supply logo at the top of the page, and it'll take you to their general store. And they have all different kinds of discounts here on various items. They have MREs, they have water filters, they have potassium iodides, fire starters, anything you can imagine. So use the link preparewithNYPrepper.com to get 25% off of the Patriot Supply 3-month emergency food supply and 30% off of the Vesta indoor space heater and stove. And Russia is planning to launch a massive offensive in eastern Ukraine near the town of Avdiivka. According to Ukrainian intelligence, 40,000 Russian troops have been concentrating nearby, and Ukraine is claiming responsibility for hitting a massive Russian oil refinery some 400 kilometers from the front line on the shore of the Black Sea. Sources within Ukraine's intelligence service SBU told Reuters they will continue targeting Russian infrastructure deep behind the front lines, okay? And I want to just update you on the situation in Texas. Here's an official statement that was put out by Governor Greg Abbott, and I want to read to you what he says here at the bottom of this statement. He said the failure of the Biden administration to fulfill the duties imposed by Article 4, Section 4 has triggered Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, which reserves to this state the right of self-defense. For these reasons, I have already declared an invasion under Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 to invoke Texas's constitutional authority to defend and protect itself. That authority is the supreme law of the land and supersedes any federal statutes to the contrary. The Texas National Guard, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and other Texas personnel are acting on that authority as well as state law to secure the Texas border. Wow, guys. So the governor of Texas declaring that there's an invasion going on, and that is basically allowing him to supersede anything that the Supreme Court or anyone else says, okay? So this is huge news, guys, absolutely huge. I want to just quickly shout out a friend of mine, Prepper Tribe. Check him out. He's back on YouTube again. He's posting pretty regularly. His live streams are always really fun. Check him out. He talks about current events, prepping, and usually his conversations are very laid back and fun, not super intense, which is a nice change. And I want to just mention that the 100,000 subscriber giveaway winners have been posted to my community page. Okay, so you go to my main page on YouTube, you click on the community section, and you'll see the winners here. We still need Flip Flop Sunsets, Holly at the Naturista, and Brett Shannon. Everybody else I've already gotten emails from. So Brett Shannon, Holly at the Naturista, and Flip Flop Sunsets, please send me an email along with your address so I can send you your prize. And I've already gotten a few fraudulent emails, people claiming to be a winner when they weren't. Please don't try that. I'm not stupid. I wasn't born yesterday. I have special methods to figure out who is the real winner and who is not. So please don't piss me off. And I want to just update you on the situation in Israel. The Israeli Ministry of Health is holding an exercise today that simulates a scenario of an extensive war in northern Israel. In the exercise, various scenarios were presented dealing with the operation of hospitals and health insurance funds, aspects of evacuation, and providing support to chronic patients who need immediate assistance. Officials from the Ministry of Health, the hospitals, the health funds, the health bureaus of the Ministry of Health, emergency services, the Homefront Command, and other officials participated in the exercise. Okay, so the Israelis are holding a massive exercise today simulating a war in northern Israel with their health services involved. Okay, so they're figuring out how to deal with a mass casualty scenario. Okay, this is huge, guys. And about 2 weeks ago, the Israeli Defense Forces, the Israeli military, actually held an exercise in northern Israel as well. And the defense minister went up there, and also the Israeli chief of staff went up there as well. Okay, so the Israeli Ministry of Health doing an exercise in northern Israel today, dealing with a war scenario in northern Israel. The Israeli military practicing for a war scenario in northern Israel about 2 weeks ago. So something is about to go down, guys. Okay, I think Israel's going to go in and deal with Hezbollah. And the Israeli military launched airstrikes at a key Hezbollah airstrip in southern Lebanon, just 20 kilometers from the Israeli border, that is operated by Iran for the purposes of bringing in weapons and supplies for Hezbollah to attack Israel. In September 2023, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant revealed pictures showing the joint Hezbollah-Iranian airstrip. Gallant said at the time that at the airport, one could see Iran's flags flying on the runways from which the Ayatollah's regime is using to plot against Israel. The defense minister also said, put differently, the land is Lebanese, the control is Iranian, the target is Israel. Okay, so like I said, guys, all roads lead to Iran. Iran is behind all of this. Iran is the keystone for all of these groups, okay, the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, the proxies in Iraq and Syria, okay? Iran is the keystone. And the shipping company Maersk has announced that it will stop further transit operations through the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden until further notice. Okay, Maersk is a massive shipping company, another huge screw up by the Biden administration, okay? Another massive screw up that's going to have huge consequences here in the US and around the world, all because the Biden administration does not have the testicular fortitude to confront the Houthis, okay? This is absolutely insane. And the U.S. and Iraq are set to begin talks on the U.S. withdrawing forces from Iraq, according to U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. This is absolutely despicable, guys, okay? The Biden administration is just letting all these things happen, basically, okay? They're allowing the Houthis to do what they're doing, attacking all these commercial ships. They've effectively shut down or greatly reduced the international shipping through the Red Sea, which is critical, okay, because a lot of these ships, they go through the Red Sea. If they're going from Asia to Europe or Europe to Asia, they go through the Red Sea. Otherwise, they would have to go all the way around Africa, thousands and thousands of miles, okay? So this is going to have a huge global impact. And then now we're tucking our tail between our legs and leaving Iraq. I mean, it's just absolutely insane, guys. It doesn't make us look strong. It makes us look weak. Okay. And I know a lot of you guys say that we need to pull our troops out. Yes, we need to pull our troops out of the Middle East, but we can't do it in a way that makes us look weak, like we're tucking our tail between our legs and running away, because that's how we look. Okay. Just like we did in Afghanistan. Yeah, we need to pull our troops out of Afghanistan, but you don't just leave behind all this equipment and run away like we're scared of the Taliban or something. You don't do that. You do it smart and in a controlled way. The Iranian president visited Turkey today and met with the president of Turkey, Erdogan, to discuss the situation in Gaza and the Middle East. While in Turkey, the president of Iran gave a speech and said America has the blood of innocent children and women on its hands, and that the U.S. is abetting Israel in its crimes in Gaza. And the Ukrainian president, Vladimir Zelensky, says his country will push for an international investigation into the crash of a Russian military plane near the border with Ukraine that supposedly had Ukrainian prisoners of war on board. Russia says they recovered both black boxes from the plane, the Russian news agency RIA Novosti reported. And the UN Security Council is meeting right now to discuss Russia's claims that Ukraine shot down the Russian military transport plane, killing everyone on board. And by the way, guys, that's absolutely ridiculous, because if they did in fact shoot down this plane with Western air defenses, that would mean that Ukraine consciously shot it down, because the types of radars that Patriot missiles have and Western air defenses have, they're just top of the line. Okay, that's why the Patriot missile system is so effective and one of the best in the world, if not the best in the world. There's no other air defense system in the history of mankind that has been used as effectively as the Patriot system. Maybe Israel's Iron Dome. Okay, but Iron Dome is a little bit different than the Patriot system. Iron Dome is more for artillery, and the Patriot system is for short-range missiles. Okay, there's no other air defense system ever developed in the history of humankind that has been tested as much in combat as the Patriot system. Okay, yeah, Russia has their S-7000, whatever, it's the best in the world. It can intercept a goose flying over Mars, in 3 seconds flat. None of those systems have been tested, but the American Patriot system has been combat tested, and its radars are really, really accurate, okay? And this big, slow plane would have returned a massive radar cross section, and the operators of the Patriot system would have been able to see, okay, this is some kind of either civilian plane or transport plane. It's likely not a missile, and it's likely not a fighter jet. So we're not going to launch and intercept it, okay? Because humans are in control of air defenses. They're not automatic, okay? There are actually people that sit and look at radars, and they have to analyze the radar and say, okay, we want to engage this. We don't want to engage that because that could be a civilian plane, but this looks like a cruise missile. So let's target that radar cross section that we see on our screen. Okay, but they would have been able to see this massive plane flying. So I don't believe what Russia is saying, that Ukraine shot this down. I mean, it's just insane. Okay, why would Ukraine kill 60 of their own prisoners of war? It just makes no sense whatsoever. And a representative of Ukrainian military intelligence, Andriy Yusov, said on Thursday that the Russian plane that crashed in Russia could have been carrying both missiles and people. According to Yusuf, Russia could have used prisoners of war as human shields. So, unless Ukraine did it on purpose because maybe they thought that Russia was moving weapons on this plane, then that's a different story. But accidentally, no. Modern air defenses, especially Western air defenses like the Patriot system or IRIS-T, they have very accurate radars and they don't just accidentally shoot down planes like the Russian air defenses did in eastern Ukraine a few years back when they shot down that civilian plane over the Donbass. You remember that? Okay, where was the uproar then when the Russian separatists shot down a civilian plane? Okay, not even full of prisoners of war, but literally civilians that were, the whole plane was shot down by the Buk air defense system, which is a Russian air defense system. Okay, the United States Navy sailed its first warship through the sensitive Taiwan Strait on Wednesday following presidential and parliamentary elections on the island, drawing the ire of Beijing. The U.S. Navy said the destroyer USS John Finn transited through a corridor in the Taiwan Strait that was beyond the territorial sea of any coastal state. John Finn's transit through the Taiwan Strait demonstrates the United States' commitment to upholding freedom of navigation for all nations as a principle, the U.S. Navy said in a statement. No member of the international community should be intimidated or coerced into giving up their rights and freedoms. China's military said the mission was public hyping and that its forces had monitored and warned the ship. Recently, the U.S. military has frequently carried out provocative actions to maliciously undermine regional peace and stability, the People's Liberation Army Eastern Theater commander said in a statement. Taiwan's defense ministry said the ship sailed in a southerly direction through the strait, adding that it monitored the movement and that the situation was normal. Meanwhile, the Chinese Navy is conducting its own transit of an international water strait. On Thursday, Japan's Joint Staff Office issued a press release stating that at 3 a.m. today, the Chinese Navy destroyer, the CNS Zhengzhou, and the frigate CNS Changzhou had been sighted sailing north in an area 43 miles west of Tanegashima Island and subsequently sailed west to transit the Osumi Strait and the East China Sea. The release also noted that Chinese Navy ships transited the Miyako Strait on January the 16th to enter the Pacific. A Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force P-1 maritime patrol craft from Fleet Air Wing 1 based at JMSDF Kanoya Air Base on the main island of Kyushu shadowed the Chinese Navy ships. So here we have just a picture showing all of the Chinese ships and aircraft that have been flying near Japan, okay? This is absolutely insane. Japan scrambled fighter jets 555 times in the last 9 months, okay, of 2023. Absolutely insane. 392 Chinese aircraft, 148 Russian aircraft, 570 Chinese carrier launches and landings, and 2 joint bomber flights. Okay, that was all in the last 3 quarters of 2023. Okay, so hundreds and hundreds of Chinese and Russian aircraft flying around Japan. This is very, very concerning, guys. Okay, and here we have a picture showing the locations of all of these different flights here. You can see all around Japan, and this is the area where some of those Chinese warships sailed through the Japanese islands. Okay, in the southern part of Japan, they sailed through one of the straits here between one of the islands. Okay, 2 of the Chinese destroyers. So getting really close to Japan's sovereign territory and territorial waters. And here we have the 2 Chinese naval vessels that sailed through that strait in southern Japan and around Japan. And in response to Taiwan's foreign ministry statement about China's obligation to respect Taiwan's election result, the Chinese Defense Ministry spokesman Wu Kane said that the island of Taiwan will reunify with the motherland and that China always speaks with actions. Okay, so that is some huge news there. And Russia's top diplomat Sergei Lavrov accused the United States, South Korea, and Japan on Wednesday of preparing for war with North Korea. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told a UN news conference that this new military bloc brought together by the United States is building up military activity and conducting large-scale exercises. All of a sudden, South Korea's rhetoric became even more hostile towards North Korea, he said. In Japan as well, we hear aggressive rhetoric, and it is seriously talking about setting up NATO infrastructure with U.S. assistance. Lavrov said the objective of the military bloc is clearly stated. They're preparing for war with North Korea. The Russian minister said the U.S., South Korea, and Japan have also been talking about developing their cooperation. It's quite wishy-washy the way they phrased it, but they said something like nuclear-related cooperation, he said. Last week, the three countries conducted combined naval exercises involving an American aircraft carrier in their latest show of strength against nuclear-armed North Korea. North Korea's Kim Jong-un has been on a provocative run of weapons testing and threats that raised regional tensions to their highest point in years. Senior diplomats from the three allies were to meet in Seoul to discuss the worsening standoff with North Korea. On the other hand, Lavrov said Russia's relationship with North Korea is proceeding nicely. It's developing quite actively. We see that North Korea is trying to be independent and not to dance to anybody's tune, he said. So, very strong words there from Sergei Lavrov accusing the U.S., Japan, and South Korea of preparing for war, even nuclear war with North Korea. And North Korea just recently tested an underwater nuclear-armed drone, okay? And they also tested a medium-range ballistic missile with a hypersonic glide vehicle. They also launched a spy satellite, and they also launched a ICBM that was solid fueled about 2 months ago. So that's the latest breaking news that I have, guys. I will be back later on this evening with more breaking news. So make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell icon below so you get notified when I post these updates. And if you don't get a notification for some reason, just go and check my channel because sometimes YouTube doesn't send out notifications for every video. So always check my channel manually if you haven't seen a notification for a while. And other than that, I hope you have a good afternoon. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.